Stop being mediocre. 8 Stoic steps to win at life. Reject the comfort illusion. Comfort pretends to be your friend, but it is the sharpest enemy of greatness. It arrives quietly, wrapping itself around you like a warm blanket, whispering that you deserve to rest a little longer, that you can push your limits another day. But what begins as rest becomes routine, and what begins as a small indulgence becomes the foundation of a life dulled and softened. The Stoics knew that comfort is not neutral. It is the beginning of decay. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning that he was not born to lie under the covers, but to rise and do the work of a man. Seneca wrote that luxury teaches weakness, and Epictetus taught that those who seek constant ease have already lost control of themselves. The illusion of comfort is seductive because it disguises itself as care. You tell yourself you are protecting your energy, being prudent, avoiding stress. But look deeper. Is it protection or is it fear? You are not tired, you are untested, you are not protecting your peace, you are avoiding your potential. Comfort is the great thief of urgency because it convinces you that life can wait. Yet life does not wait. The clock is moving, and while you sink into softness, rust spreads across your soul. Ask yourself how many times you have avoided the difficult choice because the easy one was within reach. How many times did you stay in bed instead of rising, eat more than you needed instead of practicing restraint, waste hours instead of confronting the task before you? Each of those moments may seem small, harmless, forgettable, but together they build a life ruled not by discipline but by indulgence. The man who always chooses comfort is training himself for weakness, and when true trials come, loss, pain, responsibility, he will find that his spirit is too soft to carry the weight. The Stoics did not reject comfort out of hatred for pleasure. They rejected it because they understood the cost. When you chase comfort, you trade away strength, discipline, and clarity. You cannot build the character of a warrior while living like a servant of ease. You cannot prepare for storms by sitting in the sun every day. Greatness is born in the cold, in the weight of the burden, in the fire of resistance. The man who trains himself to embrace discomfort does not fear the world, because he knows he can endure it. Think of your own life. Where has comfort made you weak? Where have you mistaken safety for progress? The Stoic path demands that you strip away the illusion and see comfort for what it truly is, a subtle poison that tastes sweet but leaves you hollow. You break free not by rejecting every pleasure, but by refusing to let pleasure rule you. You take the cold shower when your body craves warmth. You sit in silence when your mind craves noise. You walk the harder road when the easy one tempts you. Each choice against comfort sharpens your will. Each act of resistance builds armor around your soul. If you want to stop being mediocre, you must stop being addicted to comfort. The two cannot live together. Mediocrity thrives in softness, but greatness is forged in fire. The Stoics chose the fire, and because of that their names still echo through history. The question is, will you choose the same? Wage war against excuses. Excuses are the most dangerous enemies you will ever face because they wear the mask of reason. They don't scream at you, they whisper with persuasive logic. You've worked hard enough today, you deserve a break. It's not the right time. Wait until things are more stable. You'll start tomorrow when you feel more ready. They dress themselves as wisdom, as self-care, as practicality, but in truth they are lies designed to keep you small. The Stoics treated excuses with the same contempt as weakness, because they knew that every excuse, no matter how harmless it seems, is a seed of surrender. Marcus Aurelius warned himself against being seduced by ease, reminding his mind that the work of life cannot be postponed. Seneca wrote that the greatest waste of life is delay, that while you wait for the perfect moment, life passes you by. Epictetus taught that excuses reveal the chains of slavery to impulse because they show that you are not in command of yourself. Excuses are not harmless, they are assassins of destiny. Each time you accept one, you trade the man you could become for the comfort of the moment. Think of the times you excused your inaction. You told yourself you were too tired to study, too busy to train, too stressed to focus. You felt justified, even wise, in postponing, but the truth is, deep inside you knew it was surrender. You knew the task mattered, but you gave away your power to the soft voice of avoidance. Every excuse you feed becomes stronger, and soon it commands you. You become its servant. Living a life governed not by discipline, but by permission slips you right for yourself. The Stoic response is war. Excuses are not to be debated. They are to be crushed. When the voice whispers, "You can start tomorrow," answer it with action today. When it tempts you with, "You deserve a rest," remind yourself that dignity is worth more than comfort. The man who fights excuses with immediate action builds unshakable will. He refuses to let delay rot his character. He chooses to win small battles each day because he knows those battles form the foundation of greatness. This war will not be easy. Excuses will adapt. They will change form. They will try to catch you when you are weak. But the more you resist them, the sharper your mind becomes. You will begin to hear their lies clearly. You will learn to strip away their disguise and expose them for what they are: fear, laziness, avoidance. And once exposed, they lose their power. To stop being mediocre, you must declare total war on excuses. You must burn the bridges to tomorrow and stand on the battlefield of today. Greatness is not won in distant years. It is built in the present moment. Every time you act in spite of excuses, you rise above mediocrity. Every time you refuse their soft chains, you step closer to mastery. The Stoics understood that life is too short for negotiation with weakness. You either rule your excuses or they rule you. And if they rule you, mediocrity already has you in its grip. Build inner audits. Mediocrity thrives in the shadows of unexamined days. When life passes without reflection, the mind drifts, the will softens, and the heart grows careless. This is why the Stoics practiced the art of self-examination with relentless precision. They refused to let a single day end without accountability. Seneca confessed that each night he questioned himself, "What weakness did I conquer today? What impulse did I resist? What duty did I neglect?" Marcus Aurelius filled page after page with meditations not for others, but for his own soul, sharpening his thoughts against the whetstone of reflection. To the Stoics, the day unexamined was a day wasted. Mediocrity depends on blindness. It flourishes when you do not look closely at your own actions. It survives when you are too distracted, too busy, or too indifferent to ask yourself if you lived with purpose. And so most people live in a fog. They wake, work, eat, and sleep without ever interrogating the quality of their choices. They live as if time were endless and their habits invisible, but the truth is merciless. Every unchecked day shapes you. Each neglected examination lets weakness grow. To build inner audits is to declare that no day will end in darkness. It means sitting with yourself in silence, removing distractions, and placing your life under the harsh light of honesty. It is not about punishment. It is about truth. You ask, did I waste time today on empty distractions? Did I act with courage when fear whispered? Did I speak with integrity, or did I choose convenience over truth? Did I build something meaningful, or did I surrender to comfort? These questions may sting, but their sting is medicine. They awaken the part of you that refuses mediocrity. Imagine ending each night with this ritual. The weight of your own conscience becomes your teacher. Excuses dissolve under its gaze because the page does not lie. The mirror of reflection shows you who you are, not who you pretend to be. Some nights you will feel proud, other nights ashamed. But both are victories, because both are truth. And truth is the foundation of growth. The man who faces himself each day cannot drift far from his path. The man who hides from himself becomes a stranger in his own life. The practice of nightly audits arms you against mediocrity by making you a judge of your own soul. It builds a rhythm of accountability that no external praise or blame can replace. When you measure yourself daily, you stop fearing the judgment of others because you already live under the strictest court, your own. The weak avoid this court because they know the verdict will condemn them. The strong embrace it because they know only by confronting their failures can they rise. Mediocrity hates the inner audit because it cannot survive exposure. It depends on darkness, on drifting, on pretending. The moment you demand truth from yourself, mediocrity begins to die. This is why the Stoics practiced reflection as a weapon, not a pastime. They knew that the man who examines himself daily is already on the path to mastery, because he refuses to live unconsciously. So build this ritual. At the end of each day, sit in silence, write, reflect, interrogate. Do not allow the hours to vanish without learning from them. This practice will feel heavy at first because truth always weighs more than lies. But with time, it becomes liberating. It becomes strength. It becomes clarity. And it becomes the shield that guards you from the slow poison of mediocrity. Practice voluntary discomfort. Mediocrity is born in the pursuit of constant ease. The more a man arranges his life to avoid struggle, the weaker he becomes. The Stoics understood this and deliberately sought discomfort as a form of training, not because they loved pain, but because they knew that strength only grows where resistance exists. Seneca would sleep on the floor and eat coarse bread, not because he lacked wealth, but because he wanted to prove to himself that he could endure less. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that life owed him no softness, that difficulty was the very condition of existence. Epictetus, born a slave, taught that freedom is not the absence of hardship, but the ability to remain unbroken within it. Voluntary discomfort is a rebellion against mediocrity. It is the decision to step into difficulty before life forces it upon you. It is fasting when food is abundant, rising early when sleep tempts you, walking when you could ride. In the modern world, it might mean turning off the endless distractions, sitting in silence when your mind craves noise, choosing effort when convenience lies within reach. These choices may seem small, but each one sharpens your will like steel under the hammer. They are not punishments, they are rehearsals for life. Because life will test you. It will take from you what you did not plan to lose. It will confront you with storms you did not see coming. And when that day arrives, comfort will not save you. Comfort will betray you, because it never prepared you for battle. Only voluntary discomfort prepares the spirit to endure the unexpected. The man who trains his body and mind through chosen hardship is not broken by misfortune, because he has already walked through fire on his own terms. Consider how much of your life is built around avoiding inconvenience. You reach for the phone the moment boredom arrives. You overeat to avoid the smallest hunger. You seek distraction rather than face silence. These patterns feel harmless, but they are chains. Every indulgence that rules you is proof that you are not free. Freedom is the ability to say no to pleasure and yes to challenge. The Stoics knew that the man who cannot endure discomfort is not master of himself, no matter what else he controls. Practicing voluntary discomfort is how you reclaim that mastery. It does not require extremes. You do not need to climb mountains or suffer needlessly. You only need to choose against comfort often enough that it no longer rules you. Take the colder shower. Eat with simplicity when you could feast. Turn off the noise and face your own thoughts. Walk the longer path when the shortcut tempts you. Each act is a reminder that you are stronger than your cravings. Each act is proof that mediocrity has no hold on you. Mediocrity whispers that life should be easy, that comfort is the reward you deserve. The Stoics answered that comfort is the fastest path to decay, and that strength is the only true wealth. Voluntary discomfort is not about suffering. It is about forging resilience before the storm comes, because the storm will come. And when it does, the man who has chosen hardship will stand firm while others collapse. That is how mediocrity is defeated, not in theory, but in the discipline of living harder than you must, so that when you must, you are unshakable. Define victory by self-mastery, not comparison. Most people waste their lives measuring themselves against others. They chase recognition, wealth, and status, thinking that victory lies in being seen as greater. But the Stoics knew this was the surest path to misery. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that ambition tied to applause is slavery, because you live not by your own measure, but by the opinions of the crowd. Seneca warned that envy poisons even the fortunate, for it blinds a man to his own progress while he covets what he cannot control. Epictetus declared that true greatness is not found in conquering another, but in mastering oneself, For what victory is greater than defeating your own impulses? Comparison is the fuel of mediocrity. It keeps you chained to a false standard, chasing shadows instead of substance. One man may seem richer, another stronger, another more admired, but none of that matters if inside you are ruled by weakness. The applause of the world cannot silence your own conscience when you know you surrendered to anger, to laziness, to fear. The Stoics believed that the only scoreboard that matters is the one within. Did you act with courage when you were afraid, with restraint when temptation called, with discipline when idleness tempted? If the answer is yes, you have already won, regardless of who stands beside you. Imagine a man who defeats armies yet cannot defeat his own rage. Outwardly he looks powerful, but inwardly he is a slave. Another man lives in obscurity unnoticed, yet he governs himself with reason, resists impulses, and directs his life by principle. To the Stoics, the second man is the true victor. History may never know his name, but he has conquered the greatest empire of all, his own soul. This is the standard that destroys mediocrity, because mediocrity thrives in comparison. It wants you to measure yourself by shallow victories. Stoicism asks you to look inward and measure by mastery. Consider how often you have compared yourself to others, how often you allowed envy to gnaw at your spirit, telling yourself you were behind. But behind in what? Behind in illusions, in games set by others, in contests that vanish with time. The truth is, the man who has conquered himself is never behind, because he is always on the only path that matters, his own. Mediocrity ends the moment you stop asking how you compare and start asking how you grow. This is not a call to withdraw from ambition, but to purify it. Ambition becomes poison when it is directed at others. It becomes strength when it is directed inward. Strive to be stronger than you were yesterday, wiser than you were this morning, calmer than you were in the last trial. These victories cannot be taken from you because they do not depend on applause, fortune, or chance. They belong to you and you alone. The Stoics defined victory as self-mastery because it is the only form of winning that endures. Every empire falls, every trophy gathers dust, every admirer forgets, but the man who governs himself leaves behind a legacy of strength that no decay can erase. When you define victory this way, mediocrity has no place in your life because comparison becomes meaningless. You are no longer racing against shadows. You are building an unshakable core. And that is the one victory that can never be stolen. Create a fortress of mental clarity. Mediocrity survives by filling the mind with noise. The endless flood of unexamined thoughts, impulses, and distractions keeps you too scattered to see where you are weak and too restless to live with intention. The Stoics treated the mind like a fortress under siege. Marcus Aurelius spoke of guarding the inner citadel, the one place no enemy could enter unless you opened the gates yourself. Seneca described the chaos of undisciplined thought as worse than any external hardship, because the enemy within is always closer. Epictetus demanded that every thought be interrogated before it was allowed in, like a soldier stopping strangers at the gate. They knew that clarity is not given. It is built through vigilance. Most people live with no such guard. Their minds are airports without security, where any thought, no matter how toxic, is allowed to land and depart at will. A moment of fear grows into paralysis. A spark of envy becomes bitterness. A passing doubt multiplies into self-sabotage. Mediocrity thrives in this disorder because the man who does not rule his own thoughts cannot rule his own life. He reacts instead of responds, drifts instead of directs, survives instead of builds. To create a fortress of clarity is to become ruthless about what you allow into your mind. When a thought arrives, you do not accept it blindly. You ask, is this within my control or not? If it is not, it has no power here. You ask, does this thought strengthen me or weaken me? If it weakens, it is expelled. You ask, is this judgment true or only an impulse dressed as truth? In this interrogation, you transform your mind from an open field into a stronghold. Weakness cannot take root because it is denied entry. This discipline does not mean silencing every voice in your head. It means training yourself to separate signal from noise, A Stoic does not waste hours replaying insults or imagining catastrophes. He does not allow his energy to be stolen by fantasies of control over what belongs to fortune. He returns again and again to what depends on him, his actions, his choices, his character. Everything else is dismissed as irrelevant. This is how clarity is forged, not in the absence of thoughts, but in the strict ordering of them. Consider how your own life changes when you apply this. The insult that once consumed your day becomes meaningless because it is outside your control. The fear that once paralyzed you becomes fuel for discipline because you refuse to feed it with repetition. The envy that once drained your spirit is replaced with gratitude because you see it for what it is, a lie that distracts you from your own path. The fortress of clarity does not eliminate struggle, but it ensures that struggle happens only on the battlefield that matters, the choices you can command. Mediocrity cannot survive in a mind so guarded. It depends on confusion, on weakness, on the chaos of thoughts left unchecked. When you build the fortress, you strip mediocrity of its breeding ground. You become deliberate instead of distracted, decisive instead of scattered. Your life gains sharpness, not because the world is easier, but because you are clearer. This is the power the Stoics trained for, the weapon they left us. And it is the same weapon you must wield if you wish to rise above the ordinary. Train with death at your side. Mediocrity lives on the lie that time is abundant. It whispers that you can wait, that tomorrow will always be there, that urgency is unnecessary. But the Stoics shattered that illusion with a single practice: the constant remembrance of death. Memento mori was not a slogan for them, it was the sharpest weapon against complacency. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you could leave life right now, so let your thoughts and actions be worthy of that exit. Seneca warned that while we live as if life were endless, it is slipping through our fingers, and the portion that is gone cannot be returned. Epictetus reminded his students to live every moment as if it were their last, because only then can you measure what truly matters. To train with death at your side is not morbid, it is liberating. Death is not the enemy, it is the greatest teacher of urgency. When you feel the shadow of mortality beside you, excuses lose their power, distractions appear small, and comfort looks like betrayal. Every hour becomes a battlefield where you decide, will I waste it or will I use it? When you embrace death as a companion, life becomes sharper, fuller, and impossibly clear. Mediocrity dissolves because you no longer live as though you have time to spare. Think of how differently you would act if you knew today was your last. Would you spend it scrolling, complaining, postponing? Or would you face your duties with resolve, speak the words you keep burying, act with the courage you keep delaying? The Stoics did not ask these questions to frighten themselves. They asked to awaken themselves, to stop treating life as an endless rehearsal and start living as if the curtain could fall at any moment, because it can. When you carry death at your side, every decision changes. Anger loses its hold because you know time is too short to waste on rage. Envy evaporates because you realize that no possession can outlast the grave. Procrastination shatters because tomorrow is no longer promised. What remains is a stripped and powerful urgency, to live with honor, with discipline, with presence. This urgency is the antidote to mediocrity, because mediocrity depends on delay, on postponement, on the illusion of infinite tomorrows. Consider how much of your life has been wasted waiting for the right moment, the perfect opportunity, the better season. But the right moment is always now, and the better season never arrives. Death walks beside you to remind you of this. It whispers not of fear but of freedom. Live today as if it is your last, and you will never live small. You will never bow to mediocrity again. The Stoics trained with death at their side so they could meet life with clarity. They did not mourn the brevity of existence. They honored it by refusing to waste it. And if you adopt this same practice, you will find that urgency burns through the fog of mediocrity like fire through dry grass. You will no longer ask how much time you have. You will only ask what you will do with the time that remains. And that question, lived daily, destroys the illusion that has kept you average. Serve a cause greater than yourself. Mediocrity thrives when life is lived in circles too small, when everything revolves around comfort, personal gain, and fleeting pleasures. A man who lives only for himself quickly becomes fragile because his purpose ends where his convenience begins. The Stoics understood that true strength is forged when you tie your existence to something greater than your own cravings. Marcus Aurelius carried the weight of an empire not for vanity, but for duty, writing that what benefits the hive benefits the bee. Seneca argued that a life devoted only to the self collapses inward, while a life aligned with service expands into meaning. Epictetus taught that man's freedom is not measured by indulgence, but by his ability to dedicate himself to principle. To serve a cause greater than yourself is to break the prison of mediocrity. When your life is only about you, every obstacle feels unbearable, every discomfort unjust, every loss a tragedy. But when your life is tied to something higher, a principle, a mission, a community, your hardships transform into fuel. Pain becomes sacrifice, struggle becomes training, and discipline becomes loyalty to what you serve. Mediocrity cannot survive in such a life because mediocrity has no place in the pursuit of something sacred. Think of those who drift endlessly, chasing pleasure after pleasure, comfort after comfort. They may appear happy, but beneath the surface lies emptiness, because pleasure without purpose eventually rots into despair. Now think of those who endure hardship for something greater than themselves: the soldier who defends his people, the parent who sacrifices for a child, the philosopher who devotes his life to truth. Their lives may be marked by struggle, but they are never hollow. Their victories echo because they are not for themselves alone. What is the cause you serve? It need not be grand in the eyes of the world, but it must be unshakable in your own. It may be the pursuit of wisdom, the strengthening of family, the defense of justice, the creation of something enduring. The Stoics did not believe greatness was measured by scale, but by fidelity. Even the smallest life, lived with devotion to principle, outshines the grandest life lived only for appetite. Serving a cause greater than yourself gives you clarity in chaos, direction in doubt, and strength in suffering. When you live this way, mediocrity dies because it cannot coexist with meaning. The mediocre man asks, "What will bring me comfort today?" The Stoic asks, "What serves the greater purpose?" The first question leads to decay, the second, to discipline. Each act of service to your cause makes you stronger, steadier, harder to break. And when death finally comes, as it must, you will not leave behind the memory of wasted years, but the trace of a life that lifted something beyond yourself. The Stoics knew that a man tied only to himself is easily defeated, but a man tied to a cause greater than himself cannot be conquered, because even in loss he serves, even in pain he grows, even in death he fulfills his purpose. That is the final weapon against mediocrity, to dedicate your life to something that outlives you. Call to transformation. Mediocrity is the quiet enemy that kills without a sound. It does not strike suddenly, it drains you slowly until your spirit is too weak to rise. The Stoics saw it for what it was and left us the weapons to fight it. Rejecting the illusion of comfort, waging war against excuses, auditing the soul each night, practicing voluntary discomfort, defining victory by self-mastery, guarding the fortress of the mind, training daily with death at your side, and devoting life to a cause greater than yourself. These are not abstract lessons, they are strategies for survival. Each one cuts through the fog of mediocrity and points you back to a life lived deliberately, a life worthy of the brief time you have. Look at your own existence now with ruthless honesty. How much of it has been wasted chasing ease, surrendering to excuses, or comparing yourself to others? How many days have slipped through your hands while you waited for the perfect moment that never arrived? And yet here you are, still breathing, still capable of turning the tide. The past is gone, but the present remains yours to command. The Stoics would tell you that you hold the power in this very instant to begin again. The chains of mediocrity are heavy only if you choose to carry them. This transformation will not come through comfort, or through the applause of others, or through waiting for some distant future. It will come through action. It will come the moment you decide that mediocrity is no longer acceptable, that your time, your strength, your will are too valuable to waste, that you are prepared to rise as countless others have risen, by disciplining yourself against weakness and living each day as if it were your last. The Stoics remind us that death is near, but that knowledge is not a curse. It is freedom, it is urgency, it is clarity. So I ask you, will you continue to drift, letting rust eat away at your potential, or will you step into the fire and forge yourself anew? This is not about perfection. It is about refusing surrender. It is about choosing to live with such intensity and focus that mediocrity has no place left to breathe. The choice is brutal, but it is yours. And in making it, you claim victory not over others, but over yourself. If these words have struck something within you, if you feel the weight of truth pressing against your excuses, do not let the moment pass. Act now. Begin today. And let each step be proof that mediocrity has no claim on your life. Subscribe, share, and comment to mark this decision, not as a gesture to me, but as a declaration to yourself that you will no longer live small. The Stoics showed the way. The rest is in your hands.